Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Srinivasulu. And actually, you're from which part of the country?
I'm
Which
in
state?
Bangalore, sir. Basically, I'm Hyderabad. I'm staying in Bangalore.
Acha, acha, okay. Otherwise, because Srinivasulu, that seems to
Yeah,
be this south title,
yeah, south only. South only. I'm in Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad.
Yeah, yeah. Born and brought in Andhra Pradesh. I'm settled in Hyderabad. Now I work in Bangalore.
Yeah, yeah, understood, understood. Which company you're working?
It's called Jays India Private Limited. This is a German-based
Okay,
MNC company.
okay, okay. Very good, very good. So let us start in the next 1 minute.
If you don't mind, sir, I want to associate with you. You have given your personal ID, my email ID. If anything
Mhm.
is there, I will sharing you with
Okay,
my. If any service is required, also I will get service from you.
okay, okay. Very good, very good. I'm sharing this some of the topics to you.
Yeah.
Some of this what is published in Tax Guru, as well as this some of the presentations I'm sharing
Yeah,
to all
I'm
of
very
you.
interested, sir. I've seen, I was attended a lot of seminars in
Okay.
regard to GST and customs also. But
Mhm.
I'm very impressed with your PPTs. That's why I'm humble
Mhm.
requesting you, please share me this PPT,
Okay.
sir.
Sure.
Our
Sure.
life
Sure.
will maybe easy to handle the things.
Okay. Okay. No issue. No issue. We'll do it. No issue. You will get it. Mhm. And in fact, our approach is initially we start with the broadly in a summarized fashion, like then as the days are moving, we are going into details of the yeah. Like first day we have discussed overall about the import and exports, then very brief about the this foreign trade policy. Then the second day with customs overall, we have discussed what are all the customs related procedures and etc. And third day with the GST also we have discussed. And yesterday we have discussed about the again foreign trade policy, but little bit depth of it. Okay, like today we are going to discuss about the export and import procedures and documentation, because a lot of documentation is involved in import and exports. Proper documentation is very essential, otherwise there is a risk of rejections or risk of non-compliance that result in your payments blockage. For example, you are exported but documents are not in proper and you're not properly negotiated in the bank the documents, then your payment will be hold up till that clearances and other thing. And similarly, if something you're not complied with statutory requirements, some documents are required. If you're not complied, then somewhere in the customs this will be held up. So like that, lot of risk factors also there related to the documents. If your documentation proper, then there is a less of risk. Okay. So therefore, today we are discussing about this uh, export procedures and documentation. Now the screen is visible to you.
It is
Hello,
visible, sir. Yes, sir.
visible.
It is visible,
Yes,
sir.
okay. Okay, 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 okay. Yes, Mr. Hari Krishnan, you want to discuss anything?
Yes, sir, I had asked one question yesterday, sir.
Yeah, what is that, sir? Tell me.
Sir, is customs, is the duty remission and duty drawback one and the same thing?
So in the chapter 4 we call the duty remission. Remission is nothing but first you have to incur the cost of the taxes and duties, then you will get the refund like remission, that is what. And under the remission, duty drawback is one of that scheme.
Okay.
That duty drawback, it is not administered by the DGFT, but it is being administered by customs. So that is the difference. But in the policy, of course, policy must be there about this. Without a policy, of course, customs also can't work out, because the DGFT has an authority over these export import related all the regulations and everything. They are the authority. So there must be some provision. Based on that, customs also provides the remission of that tag duty, and that is called duty drawback.
Okay, when customs provides a remission, it becomes duty drawback. When the policy
that,
provides for it, it is a remission.
in a policy, broadly that call it is a remission, but under the remission there is a duty drawback, but this has been administered by customs, not the DGFT.
Okay.
Good. Good. So today we are going to discuss these are the some of the topics: export procedures documentation, shipping bill and fulfillment, then RFID, then EDI system also we will some more will go, that ICE gate and RMS system. Then customs, again customs Turant, sometime back we have discussed briefly, again we'll go. And also we discuss about the custom duty calculation, like somebody yesterday asking, that is why this is the preserved already. So this is today's session, we'll discuss how to calculate. I will show you also practically how to calculate the customs duty in the system. Okay. Then also we'll discuss mainly about the Incoterms, which are very important aspect. So Incoterms we'll discuss today. So based on the Incoterms only, your contracts and other things related to deliveries, means these are the delivery terms also called. Incoterms is nothing but delivery terms. So what is this we'll discuss, and other port formalities and other thing we'll discuss. So this is how broadly our session today. And every time I used to tell, these are the 6 steps for the starting of any import and export business. And these are the steps. First step is to form your organization. Then about the setting about the business, briefly these are the steps, like establishing then PAN card where you can get all these things also mentioned, the link. Then bank account again you have to get in the Forex bank. Then IEC, RCMC, all these things also, how to get the kind of links are there given. Of course I'm sharing this slide so that you can understand. So this is the procedure for the registration of the ID code with the customs, because I told you one of the procedure here, the registration of the AD with the customs, means AD means authorized dealer, means bank details. You have to, this is the bank details, you have to register with the customs, so that what are the refunds or any of the remissions like duty drawback will be automatically credited to your account. So therefore the registration of AD with customs is very important. Further, this is the circular how to go about this. Of course, if you have engaged any CHA, means customs house agent, they will do on your behalf, because many things we may not be able to handle with the customs, because customs procedures and all things we are not able to know very details. But these CHAs with a small amount of these things, they can do, of course, all these formalities they can complete. So this is one of the requirement of AD registration with the customs. Then these are the various organizations involved in the export import business that sometime back I talked to you. And the selecting the export product, then selecting the export market. Then of course export marketing, after that you are selected, then start up the tips for the business. For example, analyze your potential, export potential, and what are the products you are very much acquainted and very much you can source with competitive prices and quality consistently over a period. Then those things you have to identify. Then identify the your market, overseas market. Then identify your customers, some steps are there. Sometime back we have discussed again all these steps, but again I'm just showing because today we are talking about the procedure and documentation. So this is the procedure how we are going about identification of the product, then identification of the market, then market related all the informations, and your trade related all. Just a minute. So market related all the informations and market related regulations and other thing also you must be much aware about. Then what are the barriers also you have to understand. Country barriers and market barriers are quality related issues. All these things also you have to properly understand. Then properly identify the market as well as the product. So then you can go with your starting at the project export business. And some other things also again I mentioned. These are the things. 10 critical issues to start the export business. Is your company ready for export ready? Export ready means you are take the formation of the organization, then taking the PAN number, then IEC, GST number, then AD registration with the customs. All these things are readiness for your company readiness. Then is your product export ready? Means whether you are identify particular product or the service even, and where you are competitive, where you can consistently procure and deliver high quality products meeting the customer's requirement. So that is what the is your product export ready. Then is it your website and other thing also must be ready, because everybody who wants to purchase up from us, they also verify your credentials. Nowadays credential verification is one of the best ways. Websites in the internet, they'll search whether the company existing or not. If they couldn't find in the anywhere in the website, they think this company is not existing, this is a fake company. So therefore we must have certain readiness with our website, our export promotion activities, and all these things. Somewhere we have to be there in the internet. Whenever somebody searches, our name should reflect. So that is the purpose of this. Then what markets and other thing, again developing my export plan, which market, which focus region with your product, and also customers identification. Accordingly we can go about. Have you identified an international buyer? The buyer means that particular means your customer, prospective customers who are there. Whether you have to go with certain plan with distributors or agents, or directly you are going to the market, that is also you have to decide, and accordingly you have to decide about your prospective customers. Then do you have enough knowledge of the international terms? That is what we are learning, each of the terms and other things. Today also we'll learn about the delivery terms. In another session we'll understand about the payment related, what are the methods are there, and similarly various other terms and conditions in the contracts, what should be there. The contract, international contract also we are discussing in one of the session. So you can understand various terms and terminologies used in the international trade, so accordingly you can properly negotiate the contracts. Then do you have the enough cash to build? That is what your working capitals. It is not so easy that anybody can enter into the export business. Whenever you are entering export business, some investments you have to make, and also certain credits and other thing. Normal practice, for example, you should have that capability to bear up to that credit period. For example, that working capital circulation must be there, that you have to assess whether you can cope up with that or not. Then do you have the documentation and international shipping expertise? That is why we are today discussing about the documentation, various related documentation, the regulatory documents, statutory requirements, or basic requirements, and commercial documents, like the various other things we'll discuss today. Then how do you get the paid after your export? That is now various payment methods, and LC and other things also we'll discuss. And what are the issues or risks are there involved in each of the that payment methods also we'll discuss. And also how to, if any payments are being held up, for example non-payment, Then what are the remedies, like ECGC, means insurance, like that we have to think about. Those also we'll discuss. Then what is the this what is the next step means? Again, it is every time it is not that end with one supplies, one export we have done. No, it has to be continuously we have to make. Then what next steps we are doing, how we are expanding our business and getting more orders and more exports, and what is the we are learning lessons from each of the experience, each of the transaction. We may be learning many lessons. Then we will be rectifying ourselves to get risk free. Otherwise, this is a important export business, very risky business. But over a period with knowing of many things and proper documentation and proper knowledge, then we can minimize or mitigate the risk related to import and export business. Okay. Then getting the export orders, then how you have to fulfill, that is what today discussion we are talking about these things. Various risk factors are there in export business. One of the commercial risks, like for example payment related, or any of the disputes happens about the documentation. There are certain other risks like the socio-political risks. Now the political risk is between the Russia and Ukraine. Because of that, worldwide many of the transactions means either import and exports are being held up or deferred, or something are held, means something are now they become litigations. So these also some risk factor. Then currency fluctuations is also very risky. Sometime back maybe currency maybe, for example, $1 is equivalent to say 74 rupees. All of a sudden, for example, it falls down to 70 rupees. Then what happened? Each dollar you are losing 4 rupees. Suppose $10,000, then 40,000 rupees you are losing. So like that, fluctuations also there in currency. That is also a risk factor. Then country related, many times the regulations are used to come. Earlier it was not there, now they impose certain regulation. Now for example, few days back Indonesia has imposed certain regulation, that requirement of the certificate of analysis from Indian companies, which India is not able to make the access, so that they stop the import of the food items from India. So like that, country risk regulations also there time to time. It's not like once sometime back we are exported, today also we can do. No, every time we have to get updated about the various regulations. And also the sourcing risk also there, and price fluctuations of the commodities. Sometime back the for example the rice, oil you can take. Oil is a good commodity here. Sometime back it was less than $100 a barrel. Now it is went up the more than $100 per barrel. So that is a highly fluctuating. Because of that fluctuation, all the oil and related consumable items also, which are using that, for example transport, because of the diesel prices are increased, the transport cost is increased, so that all the products are being affected. Your product also must be affected. And some of the items you may be using the petroleum based chemicals, and those prices are jacked up, so your prices are fluctuated, and that is an affected. That is a risk. Sometime back you must be entered into an agreement, say you want to sell at $100, but because of the cost escalation, the $100 you can't export, because that is not meeting your cost even. So cost itself is increased to say $110, then how you can sell at $100? So those are risks are there. Then how to go about these things, that is also we'll discuss. In international contracts, what are the terms you have to properly incorporate to mitigate such type of risk. Then sourcing risk. Sometime back maybe you have some good source, but all of a sudden he refused to supply to you, but you have entered into an agreement with the overseas customer based on this your raw materials sourcing, but raw materials are not available now. Then how you can meet the requirement? Or certain times the bankruptcy or the credit risk. All of a sudden, because of the certain internal and external factors, the companies may collapse because of the debt related. Many companies in India also have seen once upon a time very highly reputed organizations. Anil Ambani's Reliance Group, for example. Mukesh Ambani is a very good flow, prospering, but Anil's group is drowned. Once upon a time, this is a good name. Top 10 rich industries, they are coming, but now they're no more. They're highly debt drawn. Okay, so those things also can happen. So bankruptcy related issues also. Then your payments are held up, for example. You have sent the material with certain terms and conditions, but the company has bankrupt. Then how to cater to that risk? So what are the risk factors are there? One session we are talking about. Then shipping and logistics related risks. Recent time you must have seen, because of the logistics related issues and problems many places, because of the corona, because of the restriction now in various countries, now again in the corona in China, for example, most of the consignments are held up, containers are blocked, and because of the Russia and the Ukraine war also, certain consignments have been blocked on that route. So that is also a risk factor. The costs are gone up per container. The shipping companies are charging very high. Some are there pre-COVID, and now if we see pre-COVID, for example, you are getting certain say $10,000. Now it is come to $60,000. Such a hike has happened. 6 times, 7 times are increased. Okay. Similarly, documentation related. Today we are discussing some of the documentation related. What are the documents are essentially required? What are the commercial documents? What are the statutory regulatory documents? Like that we'll discuss. And payment risk also once we discuss. When I come to the payment methods and the risk related, then we'll discuss. So these are the some of the things about the risk factors. And the customers verification also. Suppose you got a good customer, you feel it is a good because you have verified through internet and all thing. Maybe internet always it may not be give the true picture. Sometimes some fraud companies also they float and they will be very good seen in the internet. They are doing a lot of business like that. It looks, but they may not be true. There may be fraudulent. So how to verify these things? There's customer verification. There are various methods are there. Customer verification through your bank. If you are taking the ECGC insurance cover, and then they also make investigations. Or if you want, you can ask through any of our embassies, that country embassy. Our country embassies nowadays, government is made very strict. Earlier also there is a separate cells, but now they made the embassies which are there, Indian embassy in overseas, there is separate division is there for the trade promotion between those countries. Suppose in UAE, for example, our embassy is there, and that embassy is one of the division they're looking out for exclusively for the trade promotion between the India and UAE. So if you ask the that embassies also, they definitely will provide you details about the customers. Okay. Similarly, certain means that Chamber of Commerce and other things also there also you can verify. And also whenever you are dealing with any of the customer, you have to look into customer's credential in terms of the certain registrations. Every country has certain registration. In India, for example, a company should be formed there, that must be something registered, a private limited, a public limited, or something other a LLP like that. If it is there, the document must prove. Second, any of the other legal aspects, they are registered or not, income tax, for example, or GST, for example, or IEC code, like that, something we can verify. Similarly, you can verify in overseas also what is that registrations, whether they got those registrations or not. Then it gives some credibility that yes, they're registered. Then there may be certain confidence you can develop. And there is also certain agencies are there, exclusively certain agencies like Dun and Bradstreet and Bradstreet. They are specialists in this type of credentials. Each of the customer wise, if you any of the customer you want, you write to them. Of course, they charge certain fee, but they will provide you complete profile of the that prospective customers. Complete profile they will provide you. Last so many financial years, what is their turnovers, or what are the business they are into, what are the risk factors they are into, what are the exposures they have. If any of the payments and other things they have not made, suppose anything means as per the statute regulations, any defaults are there, that is also if is reflecting, they will provide. So based on that, you can have a certain confidence on the customer, prospective customers. Similarly, various other organizations also there, country specific also there, certain organizations. These are some list I provided to you. But Dun and Bradstreet is a very good organization, but cost is also, of course, so they charge heavily. Then executing the export orders. Executing exported orders means you have to source the and so that raw materials, in case of you are a manufacturer, raw materials, packing materials, consumables, what are they required for the production. You have to gear up the production, and production planning has to be done. If you are making a merchant exporter, you have to source the finished goods itself from various traders. Then check about the quality standards, very essential, whether the quality as per the requirement or not, all the required quality criteria are being met or not, those has to be verified. Then again, packing related, labeling related, all these things are properly they making the packing, labeling and other things. Then many countries have certain labeling related restrictions are there. Suppose suppose in Saudi, if you take, we have to write very clearly about the prices, and that language also have to mention, not only in English, but local languages also they prefer it, that has to be mentioned. So therefore, like that, lot of leveling restrictions country wise, different countries have different regulations. In India also, for example, any items you are procuring from, for example, the electronic items, mainly for example mobiles, on the top of the A in the mobile, the Indian rupees, the price, MRP price must be mentioned. So that is one of the regulation. Okay, so like that, many countries have certain regulations about the packing and labeling related. And inspection, pre-inspection certificates also certain times you may be required. Pre-inspection means the customer wanted before making the shipment, there is a third independent party, a third independent agency has to inspect about the quality and about the loading of the material in proper fashion in the container, then sealing of the container, all these things in that presence must be done. So those things also we have to very carefully look into whether those are the contractual requirement or not, because these are additional costs are involved. It's not like this simply anybody you can call and they'll come free of cost. No, that third party inspectors always they come with heavy cost. So who will bear that cost? That contract must be properly defined accordingly. Okay, then there is service providers, because everything you can't do yourself. You may be manufacturing, you may be getting some materials as a trader, as a merchant exporter, but somebody has to do some other services like transportation services, port and customs related services, the clearances, then shipping related, that carrier has to carry our goods. So those are the service providers. The CHA is customs house agent. Generally they do with all related customs and port related formalities they can complete on our behalf. Okay, so this has to be done. Then your stuffing of the consignments and sending to the port, and port clearances has to be done. Then of course all the documents have been you prepared, then the documents has to be sent to your overseas customer. Prepare the export documents as per the LC terms or payment terms, whatever may be, and presenting the documents to the bank. Also a set of non-negotiable documents you have to send to your customer, so that he will make the preparation for receiving the goods or clearance of the import consignments in at his port, right? Then bank negotiation, realization of the bank related all payments, realization of the export proceedings. Then getting the EBRC as a proof of your means your payments have been received. Bankers are giving the EBRC. This is online provision now. So this online provision has to be, that is a proof that you have got the your payments received through banking channel. Okay, then only certain incentives and other thing and your obligation other thing also can be claimed. Otherwise this is a subject to condition. Even though you got the refunds, or also you got the drawback, but this is a restriction conditions yesterday I shown to you. If we are not received the payment within 9 months, then whatever you got the export related benefits like drawback or refunds, customs will demand to make the payment with interest, because you are not fulfilled that condition, because these are conditional based your means benefits you are got. If the conditions are not fulfilled, then you have to make the payment back to the customs, right? So this is how the all the transactions has to happen. Now we are going for the export related. What are the documentation procedures and documentation we are talking about? Then I talks about import also, right? Export procedures. First, receipt of the enquiry, then you are sending the some offers, then offers are been along with any sometimes required the samples also you have to send. Then you negotiate all the terms and conditions. Of course, price is only one of the terms and conditions, not the all, because in import and export many of the other terms also properly clearly you have to discuss. Otherwise those are the cost factors, like delivery is one of the cost factor. Suppose delivering on X works basis and delivery on FOB basis or CF basis, lot of differences there, lot of cost factors are also involved. So those things you have to understand. And in one of the session, as I told you, in the contract management and other thing, when the international contracts, how to go about, there the pricing also will discuss. Then I will tell you what are the costs involved, what are the cost factors are involved while you are quoting the price to the customer, right? Based on the Incoterms, based on the payment terms, and various other certification, other things also involve certain costs. So all these costs you have to incorporate properly. Then you have to quote the price. So price negotiation is involved with various other associated terms also. Okay. Then receipt of the export order or the contract. Then whenever you are receiving, you have to access its customer's worthiness. As I already told you, there are many fraudulent dealers are there, or the traders are there, and you should not be trapped. They will give you very good price. Whatever the price you quoted, they will immediately accept it. You think that, oh, we got very good customer and very good price, we got it, very good profits will earn. All becomes a dream, and the dreams also certain times are deadly dreams, because if the customers is not proper good customer, and you are made the consignment, they are already dispatched, then somewhere you may trap, and your payments may not be realized. Though you feel that you are exported, but payments are not realized, then you will be in a very bad financial condition. So therefore you have to see the worthiness of the customer before you are finalizing the contract, and verify all the terms and conditions which are being agreed upon, those are incorporated in the contract or not. Certain times when you are making the correspondences through email and other thing, he may say that I'm okay, he'll tell. But when the contract is been signed, then those terms are not incorporated in the contract written document. Then prior to that, what are the negotiations happened, agreed or not agreed, all those things no matter, because the contract is the legal agreement. Prior to that, what has happened is no matter, that is no relevance to this contract unless there is a specific reference. So therefore in the contract you have to see whether all the terms and conditions are properly incorporated or not. So therefore you have to make all these things, then only you can acknowledge and accept the orders. Then after the order is accepted, related to the payments as per the agreement, as per the contract, what are the payment terms, whether advance payments or the LC or DR, DP, like that, what are the terms, accordingly you have to go forward. Then there are certain benefits also there you can get from the banks, from the pre-shipment finances, because exports may be larger orders, may require the larger amount of the working capital. So working capital requirement is always, for any of the business, working capital requirement is one of the biggest hurdle, and that is the biggest issue or problem for many of the organizations. So for export also there is a certain so facilities are given by the government. that pre-shipment export finance, you can get it at the concessional rate, not like in market general rate, but because this is an exports, to encourage the exports, government is fixing certain concessional benefits. So you have to approach the bank, then your bankers will give the pre-shipment finances, so that your working capital can be used to procuring certain materials or the certain services you have to acquire. For that you can have a working capital. Then also you have to get certain licenses or authentication authorizations, like I told yesterday about the DGFT. uh, there is various shares here there. For example, in chapter 4, advance authorization, prior to your export you can import the required inputs like raw materials, packing materials, consumables, fuels, like that you can import duty free. So that benefit is there. If you are availing that benefit, you have to apply to the DGFT and get those benefits, and then you can import with duty free all these items. So those things also you have to obtain the licenses and authorizations. Okay. And then your sourcing and everything has to be properly completed. Manufacturing is there, that has to be done as per the requirement. Then get the goods ready for the proper packing and marking. Marking means leveling. The levelings are properly, has to, the descriptions which you are writing at the top of it, what are the requirements, weight for example, many countries they mention at the top of the box that weight details must be there very clearly. What is the net weight, what is the gross weight. And similarly, for example, certain companies may ask for the local language, that descriptions must be there. And there are also certain leveling related, like whether it is upward or downward or whatever the other hazardous materials, there some descriptions must be there very clearly stated there. So those things have to be make ready. Then appoint the CHA and also freight forwarders. Freight forwarders generally they are the agents for the shipping lines. You may not be directly able to go to the shipping line, because shipping line are very large organizations. Small customers they may not be entertained, so therefore you may go through forwarders. Forwarders are the representatives of the these shipping lines, are the carriers. So they will give certain times even much better price than the shipping lines. So the CHS who are doing the services for the customs clearances and port related all the clearances they will do. So you have to engage them so that you can avail those services. Then arrange the pre-shipment inspection if anything required. As I told you, certain times the customer may want the pre-shipment inspection, or certain times certain items, for example food items. In India, government has made it mandatory for certain food items that inspection export inspection agency, they has to inspect your product before you are exporting. So those requirements also you have to arrange and fulfill all the formalities you have to complete. Then finalizing the shipping line and reserve the shipping space. Shipping space you have to book in advance, 1 week or 10 days or 15 days before you have to book the shipping space, that space in particular carrier. Okay. Then prepare the necessary documents, arrange the insurance if any required. Insurance also, for example transit insurances or the other type of insurances, whatever you wanted. So those things has to be properly arranged. And they dispatch the goods to the custom stations. Custom stations means they're either port or it can be dry port. There may be gateway port like for example Mumbai port or JNPT, Mundra port, Chennai port, like that. There is a gateway ports. Also there are certain ports are there, that is landlocked places, like in Hyderabad for example. Hyderabad there is no sea port, but it is a landlocked port, that is a dry port we call it. Similarly in Delhi, Tughlaqabad, that's the dry port. So those are called ICD, inland container depots. So those internal there also the customs official will be there, that is called a customs station, where your consignment customs related all the formalities can be completed in these customs stations. Okay, their customs officials will be there, and all the customs formalities will be completed in that place. Okay, then the materials are going to the port, and customs make the clearance of the customs clearances and other thing. Then you will get the certain documents, like one of the shipping bill, that customs clearance is over, then you can download the shipping bill. Then after, based on this customs means clearance, then only the shipping line can carry the goods for export. When he carries the goods on export, then he will give you the bill of lading, or in case of the air, he will give the airway bill. Okay, by sea it is a bill of lading, by air it is airway bill. Okay, after these documents you are received, then all the commercial documents as per the your terms and conditions of the contract, as well as for the from the point of view of the LC, you have to prepare the documents, compile those things, and then a non-negotiable documents you have to send to the your customer, because customer also has to prepare for the clearance of the customs from their country. So you have to send the non-negotiable documents copies. Then original documents as per the LC terms or the payment terms of the contract, you have to send to the bank. Through banking only channels it has to go there, and you can get the realization of your payment through banking channel, right? So that is how the entire process of the export process, this is the procedure, I mean process, how it is happening. Step by step I will explain to you till the realization of your payments. Okay, after payment, of course, your obligations whatever is there, that has to be fulfilled. For example, you have taken certain obligation under the advance authorization, like yesterday I told you, you have to export from the date of the your authorization within 18 months, you have to fulfill your export obligation. So once you get the realization, then banks will give the EBRC, that is the proof that you have been realized, your payments are been realized. So your export obligation certificate you can get based on the EBRC, again from the DGFT. Then only the DGFT will give you this export obligation discharge certificate, EODC. Okay. So then you can get rid of your bond executed with customs. Otherwise, whenever you are importing any of the items under the advance authorization or EPCG, you have to execute a bond with the customs, and the bond will be active and live till you have fulfilled your obligation and your discharge certificates are been proved and handed over to the customs properly. Then only they will release the bond. Otherwise the bond will be there and liability is there on you. Okay, so this is how the procedures briefly I discussed. Now let us move forward. Now the shipping bill, because this is the first step which you have to means this is a declaration. Shipping bill is nothing but a declaration by the exporter in the ICE gate, that is on E. Nowadays everything electronically had to do. So electronically on the ICE gate, that is the customs portal, you have to file the shipping bill. Okay, shipping bill, of course you may not filing, but on your behalf the customs house agent CHA, they will file on your behalf. That is what you have to make the declaration. That is what the shipping bill in EDI system of the customs you have to file by the exporter or the CHA. Then the system make the verification, everything is in order. Then data has to be submitted to the system. The checklist is there. That based on the checklist, you have to means whenever you are filing any of the shipping bill, immediately the checklist will come. What are the requirement? For example, certain items that mandatory requirement for the export inspection. So those things are being attached or not, or what are the other documents, supporting documents you have to attach. Those things, that checklist will come. You have to see the checklist. Based on the checklist, everything is fulfilled or not, then all the required data and information or documents you have to submit online only in the customs portal. Then customs portal will generate a shipping bill number. Shipping bill number will be generated. Then the goods are arrived at the port. Then based on the RMS system, means risk management system. RMS means risk management system. Randomly the system will pick up which consignment has to be taken for the assessment or taken for the means this inspection. all the consignments are not going for the assessment or for the inspection, because these are been self-assessment based. That is where you have made the self-assess based on the declaration shipping bill. Most of the consignments going on self-declaration basis, but randomly that system will picks up some of the cargos, some of the items shipping bills, and those will subject to this assessment by the proper officer and also inspection in the inspection yard. Okay, and based on that your examination or other things will happen. Then after, if everything is okay, the customs official will make the let export order. The let export order is given by the customs official. Then the consignment will go for, means shipping bill is cleared, let export is done, then the goods can be taken by the carrier. The carrier can means shipping line, then they can take the goods into the carrier, and then exports can happen. Okay, so this is how the procedure. After this let export only, that shipping bill you can download, and based on this only the shipping line also, after they carry the goods, then they will issue the bill of lading. So these are the very important documents. Based on that, further you can make the bank negotiation or other things. Then cargo stuffing. Cargo stuffing, we have a different provisions are allowed. One of the provision is about the factory stuffing. You can call the container, suppose it's a full load container load, when suppose a 20 feet container or 40 feet container you want, you can call the container to your factory. Of course, one time you have to take the permission from the concerned customs officials or the GST officials now. So you have to bring that container to your factory, then you can stuff the container in your factory like this in the first case. Okay, suppose it is a less than container load, it is not feasible to bring the container to your place, or that facility you don't have for the containers to bring to your premises, because the container movements and all things, because these large containers 20 feet and all things, the trailers also movement, lot of space is required. Suppose your factory doesn't have that space, or the movement is not possible, or loading is also not possible, because loading has to be done at certain height. If those are not possible, then you can carry the goods to port, and there loading can be done. The port loading also can be done, means customs, the dock or the CFS or ICD, there you can stuff the consignments. This is the, if in case of the LCL, or you don't have the facilities for the stuffing at your place, then this can be done. Then air cargo, for example, small consignment generally we make through air cargos. Then air cargo you have to send to the designated airports. There is a warehouses are there, that cargo warehouses. Their nominated cargo warehouse, you have to send the goods. From there it will be picked up and it will go for the shipment, right? So this is about the cargo stuffing facilities at your premises. Then export clearance, how it is happened, I'll tell you. First you have to get the customs, the superintendent of the customs for the stuffing, that permission you had to get, that your jurisdictional customs officer. These also your customs house agents can help you how to get these things. Okay, so you get the superintendent customs permission. This one-time permission you have to get for taking the means your consignment loading at your factory. This factory stuffing we are talking about. So then empty container has to call from the cargo yard or the ICD for the transportation, means to your premises factory. Then container stuffing on the self-sealing basis. Then export documents has to be made. Then loaded and sealed the container moves to the port, and port formality has to be completed, and shipping bill has to be filed, then customs clearances and all these things has to be complete. Then let export order will get. Then containers moved for the designated terminals for the upward loading in the vessel. So this is how the factory stuffing means. First you have to take the permission, is a mandatory requirement. Then after other things, as I explained to you. Nowadays, customs also become a very high tech. Latest technologies, customs also they're adopting to as a part of the means ease of doing business. Ease of doing business, a part of it, customs also adopted latest technology. One of that is RFID e-sealing. RFID e-sealing means RFID means radio frequency identifier. RFID. How it works, I'll tell you. Suppose you are going to the shopping mall. Shopping mall, you picked up a number of items, 10 items, for example, you picked up and put on the cart, and you're coming to the billing section. In the billing section, most of the times you are spending a lot of time in billing session rather than in picking out the items. Picking item, maybe it takes 10 minutes, but in billing section certain times you have to wait for 15 minutes, because each of the item that lady will scan at the billing session, each of the item has to be scanned, then that will be reflecting in the system based on the barcoding. Then only each of the item, when the code means scanning, then coming in the reflecting the invoice, then payment has to be made, then has to move. Suppose there 10 items are there, 10 times that scanning has to be done, because each item has to done. Suppose it's 20 items, then 20 times scanning has to be done. That is why the time is taking very much at the billing section. But suppose you have a certain chip, for example, each of the item there is a certain inserted some chip is nowadays costing hardly some 5 rupees, 6 rupees. So if you have put the item, there is a chip, and then there is no need for each of the item to be scanned. You can load say 100 items also, you can load in a cart. Just you come forward, there is at the top there is a means reader will be there, RFID reader. The reader will picks up all the items at a time, all the even 100 items, 200 items, all the items details will be picked up once only. So each of these you need not be scanned, but all of them recognized at one instant, so you can go freely out of the charge. Just that bill will come and then make the payment very fast happens. So that is the technology. RFID technology means there is a chip is inbuilt embedded. The chip is embedded on each of the item, and when the consignment is going, then at the top of it there is a reader. The reader recognizes all the related information. So that technology is now adopted in customs. So RFID e-seal they call it. You see in the container, this is the container, and there is a seal is there is mentioned here. This is the seal. It looks like this. This is one-time seal. Once you pressed it, then it will not open unless you broke it. So this is called one-time seal. Here how that procedure I will tell you. There is designated means assigned certain vendors are there who will sell the e-seals. You can't get the from the market elsewhere. You should not get, only through designated and nominated or customs notified vendors only. Every customs house there is a means vendors notified through a notification. Only those vendors, from there you have to purchase the e-seal. When you are purchasing the e-seal, suppose you wanted 300 e-seals for 1 year or 1 month, like at a time you can purchase. So for each of the e-seal there is a embedded A is there, one a chip is there, microchip. That microchip at the vendor, what he do, when he is selling, he collects from you all the related your details, like your IEC code, your GST number, your loading means factory or wherever warehouse you are loading, that loading address and other information he collects. All those things are fed into the system, and what of the information is fed in the system, that is always reflects in the chip. Then you can purchase the chips, and whenever you are loading a one of the consignment, for example, one particular seal you have to pick up. Every seal has a unique identity number. Every seal has a unique identity number. Based on the number, you can visit to the vendor's website, and you call for that particular seal that based on your number, so that unique number, then that portal will open, that seat will open. Further details you have to incorporate. What are the further information you have to provide? Like the further information like this here. This is the information like your IEC number, shipping bill number, date, e-seal number and date, time of sealing, and customs port, container number, trailer number. Like this, all these details you have to feed. Okay. So once these have been fed, all the details are there, like invoice details and other things also you have put there. Invoice details, shipping bill details, all these things. Then the seal can be put into seal. You can press the seal. Then the consignment, that container will go to the port. In the port area, there is a reader is there at the entry. The reader automatically picks up your information, so it will reflect directly into the customs assessing officers. These information, whatever you have fed, like invoice, shipping bill numbers and all the details, trailer details and other thing, automatically it picks up in the system of the assessing officer. So based on the RMS system, it will be decided and your clearance will be done. Otherwise, earlier what is happening, each time the consignment comes to the port, there is a customs inspection agencies, agents are there, customs officials are there. They used to go and they used to see the container, the seal number, everything physically they used to see. But there is no need for physical verification now, because everything is a system based, technology based. The seal is automatic seal. On self assessment basis, you have made the declarations, and all the declarations are available through a chip in the seal, and it goes to the port, and all the informations are reflecting in the system for the assessing officer. Then that assessment will be done, that inspection whatever they required as per the RMS system, it can be done. Then it goes very fast, clearance can be done. Otherwise, earlier for this process it takes 2-3 days, certain times 1 week. But nowadays it goes on several few hours only, it has been getting cleared, everything is goes off. So that is an advantage of the RFID e-sealing system. Then comes to the export documentation I'm talking about. Till now what we have understood is your consignment is stuffed and it's when going to the port. But when you are sending the consignment, related documents you have to prepare. What are all documents? I will explain to you. One is about the commercial documents. Commercial documents means what are the requirement documents required as per the contractual agreement between the buyer and the seller. Between the buyer and seller, you may be required certain invoice or certain documents like title of goods, like that. What are they incorporated? Those are essentially required for the commercial transactions. Those are called commercial documents. Then regulatory documents like government authorities or certain other authorities, either from the our exporting country or the importing country. Both way governments, they may require certain, or customs may require certain documents. So those are mandatory requirements. So those are called regulatory documents. Regular documents are mandatory documents. Okay. Then export assistance documents, because you are making the export as a proof of export, then only you can get certain benefits like ROTF benefit, for example, drawback benefits or some other benefits, or advance authorization fulfillment has to require. So all these things are export assistance documents, we call it, right? So this is the document related. Further we'll go. There are commercial documents. There are commercial documents again classified into two categories. One is the principal documents and another is auxiliary documents. Principal documents mean essentially what are the commercial transactions, what are the documents you have to submit or required. Those are principal documents. Auxiliary documents are, these are the supporting documents to get the principal documents. So those are auxiliary documents. The principal documents like commercial invoice, packing list, certificate of inspection, certificate of origin or insurance certificate, bill of exchange or bill of lading or airway bill, then quality inspection report or the certificate of analysis, phytosanitary certificate or fumigation certificate or certificate of confirmation, like these are the commercial documents. Okay. Then there is an auxiliary documents. Auxiliary documents support these requirements are to support the principal documents. For example, pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice are done before the shipment, much before the shipment, to enable the customer, for example, for the importer, to make certain payments. For example, based on the pro forma invoice, he may make the payments, or he may process the LC, or he may process for their import licenses in that country. For that reason, pro forma invoice is required. And the intimation for inspection means you have to give the intimation for the inspectors, concerned inspectors, to visit our premises for the pre-inspection of your export documents, export cargo. Then shipping instructions. Instruction you have to give to book your space in this ship. Particular vessels have certain schedules. Weekly vessels or bi-weekly vessels, or sometimes fortnightly vessels or monthly vessels, like that schedules are there. Like a train chart, if you are seeing, there is a schedules when the train is coming, when it is leaving, like that. Similarly, vessels also have a schedules. So you have to book the schedule based on that vessel, that schedule. You have to book that space. Okay, then that is what you are giving the instructions for the booking the space to the either the carrier or the shipping line or the forwarder. Then insurance declarations. If any insurance required, then you have to make the declaration to the insurance authorities or companies. So therefore, based on that, they will give the insurance certificate. Okay, and then application for the certificate of origin. Certificate origin is required as a mandatory requirement in certain cases. Therefore, you have to make the application to the concerned agencies. There are specified agencies are there. I will come and explain to you who are those certifying agencies are there for the certificate of origin. I will explain to you. Then mate receipt. Mate receipt means that a carrier is giving the receipt when he receiving the cargo after the let export. Then he received the cargo. Those cargo, then he will give the mate receipt. Based on that mate receipt, internally, of course, that is internal document, that bill of lading can be prepared by the carrier's representative. So these regulatory documents, again, I told you there is an exporting country as well as the importing country. Both the countries require the certain type of documents. Okay, the exporting country, maybe for India, for example, there must be a requirement of shipping bill. Whenever you are making export, the shipping bill or bill of export, that must be filed. Shipping bill generally we file when it is sea cargo. When by road, for example, suppose you have to make the clearance to the Nepal, you are sending by road. There's a Rexall, the custom station is there, Rexall custom station. There you have to file the bill of lading. Bill of export. There is shipping bill and bill of export. There are two different things. A shipping bill generally for the sea or air cargos, then it is done. But by road, for example, you are making the clearances through custom stations at the like borders, like Bangladesh border or Nepal border. Okay, Benapol, Petrapol is the borders at Bangladesh. Then at the Raxol border is at the Nepal border. So there you have to file the bill of export. Okay. Then other like export application for prescribed by the port authorities. Export licenses, if anything is required in case of the restricted items. Like yesterday also told, there is a certain items free of free means without any restriction you can export. Certain items restrictions are there, then you have to get the license from the DGFT. So in case that restricted items, you have to get the license from the DGFT. Then insurance payment certificates. Yeah, if you have taken the insurance, suppose the CF basis contract, then insurance has to be paid. That certificate cover, the insurance cover certificate, that has to be provided. Then tax invoices is a mandatory requirement. Without tax invoices, being a GST has a mandatory requirement. Yesterday I told you it has to be done. Then a tax invoice has to be made. That is a mandatory requirement. Then certificate of origin also mandatory. Many of the countries, they require the certificate of origin, where it is originated. Okay, we have certain FTAs also there, foreign free trade agreements. The free trade agreements are there, then definitely the certificate of origin from the specified authorities, it is required. So that is a mandatory requirement. Similarly, inspection certificate, export inspection, certain agricultural items, for example, there is a mandatory requirement, you have to get it. Okay. And SPS means sanitary and phytosanitary certificates. Again, for certain agricultural items, these are the requirements. Because of the insects and all things, we should not export. Very fundamental reason. Suppose you are exporting mangoes. Along with mangoes, some insects are there. And those things, why you export in there, that goes to the importing country, then that spoil in that there, that will spread across, or in the transit also it can spread, much multiplies that insects. Then when it is unloaded, it is spread in that country and damage their environment. So therefore, every country has a, as per the WTO, certain agreements are there. Sanitary and phytosanitary certifications are required. Means you have to make proper treatment, then only you can export. Okay, what are those treatments? Also, sometime back I will explain to you. Later I will explain to you. Then you can understand. That is called cyto and sanitary and phytosanitary certifications. Right. Then importing countries also require like consular invoice. Canada, for example, they wanted consular invoice. The Canadian consular or embassy has to certify that invoice. Those are called consular invoice. Then quality control certificate. Then certificate of origin, certificate of inspection or SPS, and all these things also. Certificate of conformity. These are certain countries may require in importing country. So like that, both the exporting country and importing country, there are certain regulatory documents are there that has to be fulfilled. Then the next step we have to see for the any of the export, first starting about the export, for example, then you have to see whether that item is a free goods, means without any of the license requirement, or any restrictions are there, or any provision is there, or it has routed only through state trading enterprises, or any other SCOMET item. SCOMET item, like yesterday I told you, these are the special chemicals or organisms, materials or equipments or technologies. Like yesterday I told you, some nuclear related, for example. Nuclear related means, for example, X-ray also nuclear related. X-ray equipment, for example, you are exporting or importing. Then there should be certain certificate is required, because whether it is used for the non means military or non-defense purposes, or it is for the defense purpose, or it is many other purposes. So the terrorists also uses certain type of nuclear technologies. So therefore there is a restrictions are there. Similarly, certain chemicals like ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrates are used in the blasting. So with the mining blast you want, or some chemicals also, fertilizers also, ammonium nitrate is required. Whether you're using that ammonium nitrate for the fertilizers, or you are using this for the any of the manufacturing of the bombs and blasting items. So therefore there is certification is required, that is COMET items. Similarly, restriction for the countries of export, there are certain specific countries have certain restrictions. Suppose Somalia, we can't export to the Somalia, we can't export to the North Korea. Like that, certain countries there are restrictions are there. So that is what these are the certificates we have to see from the schedule 2. Like yesterday I shown to you already, in the practically also shown to you what is the schedule 2. So the schedule 2 you have to see all this detail, then only we have to move for the export. Some of the recent provisions are there, because these are subject to changes very frequently. Maybe 1 year back they are different, and now it is different. For example, export of syringes. Export of syringes, these are put into restricted category, because syringes shortage is happening in India because of the COVID. For example, COVID for treatment, or the for the means this all the hospitals and all things. There is a huge demand happened within the industry, I mean within India. Therefore, the syringes they made restricted. Earlier it is a free, but later they made restricted. Okay, from the restricted, again when we are in a comfort zone, then again they remove that restriction, then make it free. Like that, all the time they make the movements either free or restricted or prohibited. Like that, you have to see. Human hair, for example, human hair for export, there's a restrictions are made. Earlier it's been exported free, but now later they made the restricted. Similarly, mercury, for example, there is earlier free, we are doing the export, but now it is made restricted item. Okay, this is the recent, like the September only, it is 2021 is done. Okay, then diagnostic sticks, earlier these are restricted, now these are made free, means without any license requirement. Earlier these diagnostic sticks are made because in India itself there is scarcity happened, therefore they're restricted for export. Now we are comfortable position, now they're telling that no, you can make that free, there is no restriction now. Okay, similarly prohibitions have happened on sandalwood, for example. Certain relaxations also later they did. Otherwise sandalwood is a restricted item, a prohibited item. From the prohibited to they made the long form of the sandalwood, some relaxation they did for a certain zone and certain areas only, right, certain category, like that. Then e-tariff rates also available and quota based. Quota based means suppose you can export up to certain quota, certain quantity, say up to 10,000 tons you can export. After that it will not be allowed. Like that, there are certain restricted quota system is also there. Then e-tariff, they call it e-tariff quota, e-tariff rate quota. You have to apply to the DGFT or the concerned authorities. There they will give you certificate. Based on the quota certificate only you can able to export. At time to time that quotas are being adjusted, and every year wise they generally take the quota, and then based on that quota only you can export, otherwise you are not allowed to export. Something agar oil, for example, agar wood, earlier it was free was there, now they made restricted, and also they made certain export quota of maximum this much only you can export, otherwise it is not allowed. Okay, like that they're making certain restrictions. Then export of rough diamonds, this is you need now registration, because here the restriction is the registration through that Kimberley process certification scheme is announced. Therefore you have to register with the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. Based on that only registration only, then only you can get the certificate from that export this export promotion council, then only you can export these items, rough diamonds, otherwise you can't do. So like this, many of the countries have this, many of the restrictions, or time to time governments are making certain restrictions or certain free and all these things. So time to time we have to look into the notifications. So these are the notifications, for example, where you will get from the customs notifications. Like yesterday I was talking to the customs portal. Today also again we'll go to the customs portal, then I will show you where it is available, that notifications. You go to these regulatory updates, go there, then you come to here, trade policy then you see these are the notifications, these are the public notices, these are the circulars, these are the trade notices. So the notification, for example, you can click time to time what are the notifications are being made. These are available with small descriptions, that brief descriptions are there about for example, this is the notification they made, notification number, notification date and numbers. This is the date, sorry, this is the date, and this is the notification number, and this is the what they made the changes. There is a brief description. Okay, amendment in the import policy of urad, that urad dal, and BSD STP so and so moong dal, the moong dal this one made there. So there is certain mention the policy notification has brought. Okay, and if you can download, you can see, read the completely what is that talks about. Okay, and amendment in the export policy and inspection of policy conditions under the chapter 29 to 38 of this ITC. These items, there is certain requirement of the inspection, insertion of the amendment, the export policy they made. So suppose you want to download it, let us see. The complete notification comes. This is the notification. What the notification talks about, this is the made. This is in a present policy, free is there. Now they made restricted. These items earlier free you can export, but now they made restricted. That is what the meaning of it. Okay. So like this, through notifications, time to time, they make the changes in the policy. So you have to be every time aware of the latest provisions. Okay. So like this, all the notifications are there. Similarly, if you go there, there are trade notices also there. These are the, for example, trade notices. These are circulars, public notices. Like this, time to time, they make the notifications or the announces or circulars. You have to be update about all these things. Okay. So you can know about whenever there is a notification like this, they will announce there. You have to refer that notification for that particular items or particular related export. Okay. Now I'm going to the Incoterms. Incoterms, the latest version is called 2020. Earlier version is 2010. Means every 10 years, Incoterms are being changed. What is the Incoterms? We'll discuss. Incoterms are the international commercial terms. These have been published by International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. Okay, and they published in 1936, and every once in 10 years they're now going on publishing. The earlier publication is 2010, and the latest publication is 2020 version. This is effective from the 1st January 2020, and Incoterms are applicable adopted over 120 countries. It is a 3-letter code. This is 3-letter abbreviation. Okay, what are those abbreviations and other things I'll tell you. So this is how the journey started. First one Incoterm is 1936. Then every almost like 10 years, means earlier it is not so 10 years, but later on if you see, all these things are going on 10 years. 1980, 1990, 2000, then 2010, sorry, 2010, then 2020. This present one is 2020. So these from the 1980 onwards, every 10 years they are modifying these Incoterms. Okay, Incoterms are developed by International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. Okay, and what the Incoterms do, this is standardizes the terms, because the delivery terms, where to deliver and who has to take the cost, who has to bear the cost, and who has to take the risk. All those things are being defined properly, standardized, so that universally, globally, everybody follows the same standard. As I told you, 120 countries, they are the signatory countries. All those things they follow the practice, every same meaning of that. Everybody has the same meaning. Once you call it an X factor, means what is that meaning for every country, every transaction of the commercial transaction, it is the same meaning. So that is what is the standard, and defines the responsibility. Who has to responsible for what are the costs? Who are responsible for arranging the carrier, arranging the insurance, or arranging the other certificates? Who are the responsible? That responsibility also been defined. Then outline the cost, means who has to bear the cost. Then determine the delivery point, that place of delivery, and they reveal any gaps and anything is there, that is also we can identify, not specifically mentioned. Okay, so this is talks about basically Incoterms about the responsibility, cost, and risk. Means who has the responsibility for example, arranging the carrier, arranging the inspection, arranging the customs clearances, arranging the port, or like that port clearances, like that. Who is responsible? Who is responsible packing? Who is responsible loading and unloading? So all these things it explains you very clearly. Similarly, it explains about the cost, who has to bear that cost, and also who has to bear that risk anything happened. For example, a consignment is sold and in between that consignment is damaged, then who has to bear that risk? So those also been mentioned in Incoterms. Therefore, the Incoterms are very essential delivery terms. Whenever the buyer and sellers are there, they has to negotiate properly and incorporate in the contract appropriately. Otherwise, this leads to litigations. Okay. And Incoterms, basically these are the 11 terms are there as per the Incoterms 2020. 11 terms. One is the E terms, means the made on the abbreviations, the first letter of that abbreviation. Based on that, the made is classified as a E term, F term, C term, and D term. Okay, E term, the X works is the one of the term that is called E term because it's starting with E. X works, E, X, W, we call it. Three letters only we are using. These are the three letters. Okay, so then X works is the seller makes the goods available in his own premises, that is in X works. Then F terms like FCA, FOB, FAS, these are the F terms. Then C terms, CFR, CIF, CPT, and CIP, these are the C terms. Then D terms, these are DPU, DAP, and DDP. What are these? Again, further I will explain to you, but just this is I am telling the classification based on the starting of the letter of the Incoterm, right? Also, classification can be done based on the two factors. One is the whether it is multimodal or it is marine only. Multimodal means the transportation can happen by air, by sea, or by road, or by rail, like pipelines, and many things can happen. That is called multimodal model. In the multimodal means the multiple any type of transportation can happen, as I told you, by sea or air or road or rail can happen, right? These are terms are called, these terms are used for the seven terms are there in Incoterms. These seven terms can be used for any type of mode of transport, but these four are there: FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF. These are specifically used for the sea related consignments only. The transportation sea means waterways. Waterways are there, there's a seaways, that is only they water use this one. Okay, so like this classification also can be done multimodal and marine only. Similarly, it can be made on the freight collected and freight to pay basis also. Freight collected means already means two collectages, means two collected means these X works and the FCA, FAS, and FOB. This buyer has to pay the freight. The buyer has to pay the freight. That's a shipping line will collect the payment of the freight from the buyer. Okay, and here the freight fee paid means already it is paid by the supplier. The freight is paid by the supplier. Like these are the terms comes under this category, right? Then this is the broadly is made. This is very beautiful. Yeah, you can keep whenever you are dealing with import and export business. You have to keep this chart. The chart talks about, you see, what are the responsibilities. Like for example, who has to responsible for the packing, markings, levelings, or the quality checks? Who are the responsible? For these are the terms. For example, X works, who is responsible? The seller is responsible for this packing, marking, less. Suppose the warehouse loading at origin, in case of the X works, it is not his responsibility, seller's responsibility, the buyer's responsibility. Suppose similarly, inland transportation up to the port and port clearances, customs clearances, and customs house, this destination terminal handling charges, all these things the buyer has to pay. So these are the what are the various activities that means who has to have the responsibility and cost, who has to bear the cost, who has to arrange this for example, the shipping lines, the carrier who has to arrange, and who has to arrange the loading or unloading, who has to bear the cost. All these things are clearly mentioned here. So these are the responsibility and the cost, and each of that and each of the these Incoterms I have clearly mentioned here, so that you can have this chart, you can very clearly can understand this one. Okay, so based on this only you have to enter into the contract. and it involves the cost factor. As I told you, this involves the cost. For example, the additional cost also you have to bear it. Then this, for example, X works is the seller, the exporter has a less cost factors. Only that packing and markings, labeling, quality checks has to be done at his own premises, and at his own premises he has to make the materials ready with, and all other costs that buyer has to bear. So the seller has very less cost in case of X works. So whenever you are quoting the X works, according to the cost you have to work out. Suppose you are moving to the free of carrier, for example, or the FAS or FOB, then additional cost the seller has to bear, the exporter has to bear additional cost. You see, like this additional cost, for example, this FCA, then he has to bear the warehouse cost. Then inland delivery means the transportation up to from your premises to the port premises, that cost has to be borne by the exporter. Okay. Then originating customs clearance also, you see, customs clearance also has to be done by the supplier only, means exporter. Customs clearance also has to be done, and he has to keep means available at the that concern particular area. The consignment has to be made available. Up to that, this is the responsibility of the this exporter. Similarly, others also, if you see FOB, for example, till it is been taken, means including that insurance up to the port. After the port, that buyer will bear, but it is up to the port that insurance has to be borne by the exporter, and export clearances also has to be done by the exporter. Then domestic means domestic terminal handling, means that port handling and all things, that charges has to be borne by the exporter. So like this, who has to bear the export charge cost, and means exporter or the importer. Like that, it is very clearly buyer and seller very clearly mention the responsibilities about the arrangements and the cost involved. All these things are clearly mentioned. Okay. Then once you have decided about your contract, and you enter in the contract based on the delivery terms, similarly payment terms also, later I will come and explain to you payment terms. You have to finalize that means your contract. Now you are now exporting. Yesterday we have discussed day before, means before that, and under GST there are two options are there for export. One option is without payment of the tax, means GST. Under LUT, you can export. The other option is you pay the GST. Two options are there. In the first option, without paying under the tax, without paying of payment of the tax under the LUT, you have the refund provision of the ITC. What of the accumulated ITC is there, unutilized ITC is there, that you can get the refund. For that, you have to make a separate application. That application is RFT 01A. Okay. Then suppose you want to make the payment, GST payment, whatever you made the IGST payment, that IGST payment you can get the refund. Okay. In case of the goods, there is no need for separate application. And shipping bill itself, where the shipping bill you have to declare that we are making on the payment of the IGST. That option you have to select. Then without payment of the means on payment you can make, and of course there's no separate document required. The shipping bill itself treated as a document for the your refund. Okay, and you will get the refund to your credited to your account. That is why each of the customs port, whenever you are making the any of the customs port, you are making the consignment export, in that port you have to register. When you are registering with that port, that AD also has to be registered. That is the purpose. AD means authorized dealer's account. That account has to be registered, means whenever that refunds are there, the refunds will come automatically to your bank account. If you are not registered, then it is not possible. So therefore it is a mandatory requirement. Whenever you are making an export, you have to ensure that first customs registration, AD registration has to be done. Then LUT. As I told you, there are two options. One is under LUT you can export without making the payment of the tax. LUT, the eligibility is only for the zero rated supplies. Zero rated supplies means direct exports or supplies to SEZ are treated as a zero rated. It is not eligible for the EOU supplies. Very clearly, let us understand EOU. If you are making supplies, it is not. You should not make any LUT. Okay, and also if you are prosecuted for any of the tax related evasion more than 2.5 crores, then also this LUT you are not entitled. Then you have to go with the bond only, not LUT. Okay, and supplies to merchant exports also it is not allowed. Okay, so these are the not allowed which are there. Okay, then LUT is valid for the financial year from the starting of the April 1st till the 31st March of the next year. It is valid. Every year means financial year you have to make again new LUT. New LUT is very simple process. Just you have to go to the GST portal, and in the GST portal you can make this LUT. You call for the services, their LUT is their provision. This is user services, then furnish the LUT, undertaking LUT. Their LUT, the existing LUT holders are there, then the existing number if you put, then automatically it will be coming a new renewal will happen. The new number will be generate, and that is the number you have to keep. That is a very simple process. Okay, but every year you have to get the LUT. Then the invoice. Whenever you are making export, the document, first of the one of the very important document is about the invoice, because this is a commercial invoice, and also for the customs clearance also invoice is required. So therefore you have to prepare the invoice, because in export you has to register under the GST mandatorily. When the mandatory registration is there, whenever you are registered under the GST, you become a tax payer. When you are a taxpayer, then each of the invoice, what are the transaction happens, you have to make the invoice. That is tax invoice under the GST. The tax invoice under the GST is under the section 31 of the CGST Act and rule 46, under which you have to make the provision. This is the sample like I've shown to you, sample invoice. Otherwise, this is the requirement like name and address, and GST number is mandatory requirement. GST number, you see, the registration number, GST registration number is mandatory. Then each invoice should have a maximum of 16 digit maximum, but minimum you can take either 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the numbers, but the digits maximum 16 digit number is allowed. And the date of the invoice must be there, and name and address, and GST in case of the the recipient is there, that registered, then but export generally that recipient, he will not be registered because he is out of the country, so he will not be registered, so that the GST number will not be there. Okay, and in case of unregistered buyers, of course you have to make that this number has to be made as a unique number. Like, then HSN code is a mandatory requirement. Description has to make, and the quality quantity as well as the quantity code and units must be mentioned. That is what here I am showing to you. You see, this is what the first year as an exporter name and address, including the GST number must be there. Then the buyer's details. These are the buyer's detail. Invoice number, date. Invoice number, as I told you, that is 16 digit maximum. That is the number, and date also must be mentioned. Any of the contractual references are there, those things you can give for exporter references or the contract references, you can give it. This is the buyer, and in case the consignee is other than buyer, then the consignee details also has to give this consignee details, and buyer other than a consignee, then buyer detail has to be given. means ship to, and means one is directing, for example, A is your customer. A is directing you to B. You are the B. You are the exporter. A is your customer. Customer directing to B, you, to deliver the goods to Mr. C. Means the buyer is different from the consignee. So the consignee different and the details must be provided, as well as the buyer detail has to be provided. Buyer certain times may be notified party also you can mention, like that. Means bank you can mention the details, right? Notify party it called. Then pre-carriage by, means place of receipt by the pre-carriage. Then vessels, which port and port details has to mention. Port of loading and port of discharge, means final port of discharge and final destination. For certain countries, for example, that that is a landlocked countries, for example. In such case, it has to go to the some port, seaport. From there again it has to traverse through rail or road to some other country in a landlocked country. So therefore, in such cases, both the details has to give, the port of discharge as well as final destination. Then marking numbers, packing numbers, number of packings and other thing, and the description of the goods, and HSN code for each of the description. HSN code must be there. Then quantity against each of the description item, and unit of measurement. UAM means unit of measurement. Then foreign currency, what is the price and what is the value, and then you can make it. In case you are making the payment, IGST payment, then you have to convert the foreign currency into Indian currency, then GST has to be paid. Okay. In such case, you have to make this Indian currency also you have to convert, and what are the value. Based on that, any means the GST rate is there, the rate and amount you have to mention and make the total accordingly, right? And container details also has to be mentioned, and exchange rate, because of this conversion, as I told you, for the conversion, if you may mention it, this is very good for the recording purpose, it will be essential. Then LUT number, because it is to be executed on the LUT number, if anything is there, then you have to mention. Otherwise, here you see at the top there are two options are there. One is under the LUT, the other one is on payment of IGST. In case you are adopted for the LUT, then LUT number must be mentioned here. Okay. Then bank details and other thing as required, it can be mentioned. Then it can be cleared consignment. Okay, this is what the tax invoice we are talking about, GST, under GST. And the rule also very clearly talks about that invoice must show either of the two options, that is with payment or without payment. Without payment means LUT details must be mentioned, right? Then shipping bill has to be filed after the invoice and other things were prepared. Then based on that invoice, packing list and other details, your shipment, you can forward this detail to your CHA. CHA will file the shipping bill. When the shipping bill are made in the ICE gate, then shipping bill number is generated, and based on the number, of course, then further assessment will be done. System will make the assessment based on the RMS system. In case required any of the officials interference, the system will decide based on the RMS, means risk management system. Okay. Then let export, the order is given, then generate the authentic shipping bill. You can generate the shipping bill. Okay. This is what the this EDI ports you have to make this when shipping bill has to be mentioned. In the shipping bill, one thing you have to very clearly understand, there are two values you have to declare. One is the FOB value, another is invoice value. Invoice value is the transaction value. Okay. Suppose you are entering the agreement on the Incoterms of the CIF, for example, and in the invoice you are mentioning the CF value. But FOB also you have to back calculate to mention, because it is essential. Based on the FOB value only, your export certain benefits like a drawback and advance authorization, that export order fulfillment, also obligation fulfillment also treated based on the FOB value, not on your transaction value. Okay, so FOB value is mandatory again for the drawback or the EAA, means advance authorization, a lot of facilities benefits you want to get, then you must mention this FOB value. Also you have to mention the invoice value, that is the transaction value. Transaction value based on the contractual agreement, like just now I told you, there may be delivery terms based on the XWorks or the FOB or CIF or C&F, like many Incoterms are there, 11 Incoterms are there. So what are the Incoterms? Based on that, that transaction value you can mention here as per your contract. Okay, but you have to derive also FOB value. Okay, then how to derive and all thing I will tell you. You see, this is what they mentioned very clearly. You have to mention means transaction value. Transaction value, if it's CIF value, then you have to mention CIF value. Transaction value as per the section 15.2 of CGST Act, you have to declare in the invoice, and also the value has to be declared in the shipping bill also, transaction value. Then you have to arrive at FOB value for the purpose of the export benefits like drawback or advance authorization or ROTUP, like that. For that, how to arrive at, I tell you. Suppose your transaction, as per the agreement, contractual agreement, you have entered into the CIF value. CIF means cost, insurance, freight. Okay, so then how you will arrive at, I will explain to you. Suppose you know the freight and insurance, then what you do, the FOB value is CIF value minus freight amount minus insurance premium. Then you will arrive at FOB value. Okay, suppose you don't know the freight amount as well as the insurance premium, for whatever the reason you're supposed to know, but suppose you don't know. In such case, what happen is the freight amount is taken as a 20% of the FOB value, because the FOB value you have to work out. Then insurance is taken as 1.125% of the FOB value. So like that you have to back calculate and then find out the FOB value. Means somehow you have to arrive at the FOB value. Based on the FOB value only, those things are being declared. I mean, so your incentives are being provided. Then the shipping bills. The shipping bill of various types. One is the free shipping bill. Free shipping bill means you're not availing any of the export benefits, for example, then you can file the free shipping bill. And the dutiable shipping bill means some export items subject to export duty. Suppose iron ore, it's subject to export duty. So in such case, you have to file the dutiable shipping bill. Drawback shipping bill, suppose you avail the drawback that facility, you have to file the drawback shipping bill. Then shipping bill for the for shipment X bond. Suppose it's a bonded you have made, from the X bond you have to do, then X bond shipping bill also you have to make. Then coastal means it is inland waterways, for example. There are from the waterways also recently some developments happened. Varanasi to Howrah, some waterways facilities are done. Similarly, like many other places also, waterways means within the country, but within the that riverways or waterways facilities also there. There also, if you want to avail that shipping bill, that then called is a coastal shipping bill. Okay. Then, as I told you, that by seaport or airport, then it's called shipping bill. For example, by land customs, you are making the consignment clearance, as I told you, for the Nepal and Bangladesh, then it's called bill of export. It's called bill of export. Also, when you are supplying from DTA to SEZ within the country, by land only it is moving, by road only you are supplying, for example, then also you have to make the bill of export to the SEZ also, because by road you are doing, therefore it is A. Okay. So this is the bill of export. then the number of copies and all thing. In fact, all these things are earlier days. These are very essentially required. How many numbers you have to print and all thing. Hard copies are being maintained, but now no more hard copies are required. Everything can be online only, and you need not be submitting anywhere about the hard copies. Okay. So this is how they made printing of the exchange control copy. Also, exchange control copy generally supposed to be submitted to the bank. Now no more required taking the printing. Okay. So these are everything has to be done online only. Okay. This is the notification also very clearly they mentioned. Long back, of course, they made it. Okay. Then comes to the e-way bill. E-way bill is GST provision, but in export also I told you certain provisions we have to follow GST practices also. E-way bill also mandatory when you are making the movement from your premises to, for example, port. Then that movement, if the value is more than 50,000, then e-way bill is mandatorily required. Similarly, at the import also, after the port clearances, you are taking the goods to any of your premises, then also e-way bill is required. So e-way bill is required primarily once it is more than 50,000, then e-way bill is mandatory. Okay. And the timing when you have to do before the commencement of the movement of the goods. Before movement only you have required. Who has to do? And of course they made the three provisions. The consigner, consignee, and the transporter, like that. But here, what is only you are the exporter, and you supposed to make the e-way bill. Okay, that is a general A. And e-way bill, there is a two means parts are there, part A and part B. And part A is related the transactions, and part B related the transport related transactions. Means the trailer number or the container number, all these things you have to mention there in the part B. So both the parts you have to fill up, then only it is complete e-way bill. Okay. Then when it is required, above 50,000. Okay. So this is how this requirement of the e-way bill. Then type of transport documents. The type of transport documents, there is a by air, for example, you make, then airway bill, that is air freight A. Then by sea if you are doing, or by waterways, then it is a bill of lading. Okay. Then by road, for example, then LR. By rail also they call rail receipt, RR they call it. Okay. This is how they you can make the transport of the goods. Then bill of lading, again little more details we'll understand. The bill of lading is a title of goods. It is a contractual agreement like between the evidence of the contract of the carriage. Means that carriage is getting into agreement that yes, I'm taking your goods for delivery as per the terms and conditions mentioned at the delivery point to the concerned person I will deliver. Like that he has taken the agreement. This is an evidence of the contract of the carriage. Okay. Of the receipt of the goods and delivery of the goods, and it is a document. This is the title of goods. Whoever make the presenting the document, they are the authority to claim the goods. Okay. So therefore it is a negotiable document. The BL is a negotiable document, whereas airway bill is not a negotiable document, but BL is a negotiable document. Okay. Then nowadays that release, as I told you, whoever make the presenting the original document, generally in normal terms, the BL is printed in three originals, and all the three originals you have to submit for the bank as an original part of the original documents. Any of the one original is enough for the claiming the consignment. The cargo can be claimed against any one of the original invoice. There are three original invoice. Those are called negotiable documents. Others are non-negotiable documents. In the BL, they make the stamping, which are the negotiable, which are non-negotiable. That stamping they use, that shipping bill when they're issuing, they will make the stamping. So they will give you three originals and others additionally whatever you require, that is non-negotiables. And all the three set of documents, the three BL original BLs you have to submit to the bank as a part of your original negotiations with the bank. Okay, because any of these things that can means the holder of that BL can claim the cargo, right? So that is how the here. Then nowadays, because of the corona and all thing, earlier also there, but not prominently been used. But nowadays, because of the corona, the movements are very restricted. That moving the documents and all thing, hard copies collection and submission is very difficult. So therefore, the BL also can be made online. You can submit the BL, the negotiable documents, to the shipping line at your own place. Suppose you are making the export from the Hyderabad. In Hyderabad only that export, that shipping line is there, for example, you can surrender that document to the original document to the means that representative of the shipping line in Hyderabad itself, and then based on that they will make the corresponding provisions for the receiving end to deliver the cargo to the concerned authority, means person, based on certain instructions. Okay, so these online provisions also they made it. Now I am coming to some other documents which are essentially required for the export. One is the inspection certificate, then certificate of origin, then country of a specific requirement, like certain countries like Kenya, the African countries, they wanted the certificate of conformity through certain agencies only, third party agencies. They inspect your consignment before it is loaded and then exported. So they will make the inspect and they'll give the certificate. That is essentially required. Similarly, sanitary, phytosanitary and other things for certain items like vegetable, fish and live animals and other means fruits, vegetables and other agricultural products. These are essential requirements. This certificate you have to get. Then certificate of analysis. Analysis is the quality reports, laboratory reports, testing reports. That is also a mandatory. That is certain items that has to be made. For example, drugs or certain food items or some chemicals, that essentially that required certificate of analysis. So these are the some of the documents what I'm talking about here, right? Then as export inspection. Export inspection, before export, certain items like mainly agricultural items, like there is a requirement of export inspectors has to come and they have to inspect. The list is also given in appendix 2G, the list of who are the inspection agencies, certification agencies, and format also given in the appendix. Now let us move to the appendix. This I told you, this is their regulatory and this thing. Then you come to this provision. There you see appendixes, these appendices. Then which is the appendix that I'm talking about? You see this appendix is 2G and 2H. So let us go to the 2G and 2H. This is the 2G, list of inspection and certification agencies. So you download, for example, these are the agencies are there for various items. These are the agencies for United Arabs, for example. This is the one of the agency. These are the inspection agencies for which region and which export country, like that they're mentioned also very clearly. So Nepal, for example, Bangladesh example, for example, this is the agency for that. Okay, under the notifications and nothing is given. Similarly, other agencies also you can find. Like this you see. Okay. So this is how the agencies. Now, for example, we want the certificate copy, how it looks like, format. Let us move. This is the format for the pre-shipment inspection. Format you can download. This is the format you see. This looks like the format. In this format you have to submit. Clear, sir? Any doubt? For quite some time we are not discussed. Any doubt you have? Yes, sir. Any doubt you have? Okay, this is about the inspection I'm talking about. Export inspection. Then certificate of origin. Certificate of origin indicates where it has been manufactured and exported. That is very essential. Certain times the trading items also there. Suppose you are importing from China and then exporting, but there is no value addition within India. So like that, we have to identify whether it is manufactured in India or outside India. That value addition is essential requirement. So that has to be done. And certain status holders, they are been allowed to make the self inspection also. The certificate origin, they themselves can make the A. Otherwise, there is export inspection agencies are there. Export status holders, I'm informing, these are the one of the status holders. These status holders means certain they must have certain credential in terms of their export performance, like last current year and last 3 years, what is their performance, export performance. Based on that, they have been classified as a 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, or 4 star, or 5 star. Like that, they have been classified. So for example, their export performance for current and past 3 years is $3 million US dollars and above, then they have been classified as a 1 star. Then $25 million and above, then they have been classified as a 2 star. Then 3 star is $100 million, and 4 star is $500 million. Then 5 star is $2,000 million. So this is how they classify these exporter status holders. And these status holders have the certain benefits have been provided. That is one of the benefits. They can make the self certification based on the export of means certificate of origin. They can create and they can means declare. That is what the advantage of this. Then certificate of origin, that depends upon the various provisions, whether it is a preferential certificate of origin or it is a non-preferential certificate of origin. The preferential certificate of origin, like different countries, we have a certain agreements, free trade agreements. Based on that, this is required. Similarly, certain countries are extending us these GSP benefit. GSP means generalized this provisions, means that certain developing countries, they are giving the benefit of the duty benefits for the underdeveloping countries or developing countries. They are giving certain benefits. So under the GSP, means generalized system of preferences. So the further the appendix 2C and 2D is list of agencies authorized for the SAPTA. For example, the South Asian partner means preferential trade agreement. Okay, so these like that preferential trade agreements are there. Based on the appendixes, I shown to you appendix where to find. So in the DGFT portal, you can find the appendices. From there, you can find who are the agencies are giving the preferential certificate of origin. Non-preferential certificate of origin also there is an agency. The list is given in appendix 2E. Okay. And self declaration also, who are they eligible for the self declaration, like AEO. Like yesterday I talked to you, AEO. AEOs are self, they can make the self declaration. So this is how they can make it. Okay. Then REX is for European Union. This is a benefit of the REX. If you register as a REX, then it is also treated as a certain form of the GSP, means the generalized system of preferences in form A, and it is treated as a certificate of origin. Okay. And GSP, as I told you, some developed countries, they have been extending certain the duty benefits. Therefore, this is a preferential agreement, like, so. Therefore, GSP certificate also is a proof of export from the certificate of origin. Okay. Similarly, NAFTA certificate, some agreed South Asian free trade agreements like SAFTA and NAFTA and all these things are there. With certain countries, we have different type of treatments, means preferential agreements. Based on that, certificates are required. GSP, some of these are the countries, they are extending the GSP benefit. But recently, some India is not been benefited from the GSP because some of the countries they withdrawn. We are now no more like a GSP, but many of the countries. Then country specific labels and markings also sometime back I told you this is an essential requirements. Okay. Fossil license is also required for the food and some agricultural related items for them food processing items. These are the requirement of the Plesae license for the export of the products, food products. Then halal certificate. Some Muslim countries they mandate it that halal is an essential requirement. So whenever we are exporting certain items to these certain Muslim countries, then halal certificate is a mandatory requirement. Then bill of exchange. Bill of exchange is you are making the submission of the documents to the bank and then demanding certain payment from the your buyer. Certain amount you are claiming as a demanding to make the payment. Means the seller, the exporter, making the written demand unconditional. This is a written unconditional order for payment from the drawer to the drawee, directing the drawee to pay. Drawee means the drawer means is an exporter, for example, and drawee means the importer, and the exporter is directing to the importer to pay specific amount of money in a given currency to the drawer, means to the exporter, on a certain a named payee at a fixed or determined future date. Okay. So that is why the particular date you are demanding, then exporter is demanding certain amount for the payment from the importer. So that is what the meaning of the bill of exchange. Bill of exchange is the means document. Based on that, other documents are being attached and submitting to the bank for the getting the refund. This is the payment. For example, I am saying the bill of exchange. One of the example I have shown to you like this. Okay. Some amount must be there, and that due date must be there when it has to be paid, and which are the banks, and other details must be mentioned. Then these things are completed. Then ISIS, all these things we have already discussed, because this is the customs portal. On the customs portal you have to submit the your either shipping bill or bill of entry. Those are the declarations. On the self declaration basis you have to submit. And then customs has a self assessment, as I already have discussed. On the self assessment you have to make the declaration, either shipping bill or the bill of entry. Shipping bill in case of export, bill of entry in case of import. You have to make the shipping bill, this declaration on the self declared based, yeah, and assessment has to be done on the self declaration based, subject to RMS, means risk based this management system. Okay. Then I'm coming to the import. Export we have completed. Now let us means procedures and also documents we have clearly covered. Export. Now comes to import. Import is the master of the vessel carrying the goods calls at the port and files the IGM. Like first day also I shown to you, and second day I shown to you that when now the consignment you are importing, that cargo carrier, when they're coming to the Indian territory of this territory of waters of India, then they have to file IGM, means import general manifesto. and that manifesto the customs officials will grant them the shipping vessel to enter the port. Then after they enter the port, the importer has to file the bill of entry in the ICE gate, and customs authority will assess based on the IGM and the bill of entry, and the bill of entry is processed based on the RMS, means risk management system, and then that valuation and other things will be done. Then the importer has to make the payment of the duties, whatever the duties are being assessed at self declaration or based on the assessment, it has to be paid. Then after the duty is paid, then discharge certificate is been allowed. The customs authority will allow to take from the port, that discharge certificate will be given, right? This is the what briefly again. The importer has to file the means or his representative CHA has a filed bill of entry in ICE gate, and the data transmitted to the RMS, and based on the RMS that assessment is been done. Then out of charge is after payment of the duties, in case you are taking for the home consumption, or if you want to take on to the warehouse, then you have to make the bond declared there and execute the bond, then you can take the so this is how the import clearance here. Then customs has a Turant customs. Sometime back I discussed on the second day. The customs has without means it is like faceless, it is contactless, it is paperless. Transactions are being done, everything is online. So that provision they made is a Turant customs are faceless transactions. So based on this transaction, now all the consignments are happening for import. So that is how the this yeah, without everything is online. Okay. And also the customs clearances and the assessment also, in case of the RMS, that assessment also will be done not at the port where you have submitted the documents, means that the port of import, but somewhere other CS, means custom station, that authorities can assess. So that is what it is part of the ease of doing business. Okay. E-Sunset and all thing also they introduced, and everything is paperless. Even paperless discharge certificate also they can give. Means import after the making the payment of the customs duties, and these you have to submit to the inspectors, customs inspectors, for the taking the discharge. Earlier it was all the manual submissions had to be done, but now no more manual submissions. Everything is online. Online only you can show to the means customs officials, they can allow you discharge. Okay, that is what the new process, custom discharge. E-gate pass, that is what the part of it. Then import under the GST, as I told you, GST means import also, export and import both are you have to make the treatment under GST. Either importer or exporter, first he has to be registered with the GST, then only he can make the import or export. So in case we are talking the import, the GST has to register. Then at the time of import, he has to make the payment of the customs duties. The customs duties includes the basic customs duty plus IGST. IGST we call it that like GST payment, but it is under the Customs Act, not under the GST Act, but the Customs Act, which is equivalent to GST applicable for the domestic supplies. Okay. So then that compensation cess also, if it is any applicability is there, then you have to make the payment. Then bill of entry has to be made for the home consumption or for the bonded. If you want to warehousing, that also you can do. If you want to make the home consumption, you have to file the bill of entry for home consumption and make the clearance from the customs on payment of the duty. Suppose you want to in-bond bill of entry, means you have to put into the bonded warehouse. Then in-bond bill of entry you have to make, and bond you have to execute with the customs. That is double bond, it has been called. Double the duty what is supposed to be paid, that you have to make the bond and you can take into the warehouse. At the time of requirement, you can ex bond and then make the clearance on payment of the customs duty. Okay. So this is how we made. And bill of entry is also, as I told you, different types. Bill of entry for home consumption, then warehouse and ex bond. Then Karotar, this is what the provisions that they made for the rules of origin. This is the customs administration of rules of origin under the trade agreements. Because under the trade agreements, because India is giving certain trade related benefits to the their importers. Suppose they are importing from any of the our trade agreement countries. For example, South Asian agreements we have from Sri Lanka, we are importing, for example. Then we are giving certain concessions, means duty means concessions. Suppose the duty is 10%, we may be giving only 2% duty. Like that, there is concessions are there, but these concessions are made misused. Therefore, government now has tightened these requirements. They introduced this Karota that 2020, effective from the 1st August 2020. Effective, that dates also mentioned. So based on this is the now onus of the importer to make this certificate. This onus of the importer, unless this certificate is provided authentically from the particular agencies, then that import under that facility will not be provided. That FTA means free trade agreement. Okay, PTA means preferential trade agreement. Like that, these agreements or preferential treatments will not be provided if you are not having the proper certificate from the particular agencies. So to tighten this, they have introduced these facilities. Okay, this agreement list. This is called Karotar, means customs administration of rules of origin under trade agreements. Okay. And the verification also, the authorities can send to the concerned authorities to verify whether this is authentic or not, because lot of misuse is happened. So that to curb that misuse, they introduce this provision, and based on that, minimum 35% of the value addition must be done in the exporting country. Then only this benefit is there. For example, Sri Lanka and India has an agreement, South Asian agreement, for example, and Sri Lanka to material, when it is coming to India, that material originating from Sri Lanka, there must be some value addition minimum of 35% there. Not it is been imported from China to Sri Lanka, then exported to India. That will not be entitled for this benefit. So the benefit very clearly talks about what is the value addition is created in that particular country. So that is what is essential requirement. Okay. Then comes the customs related, the custom duty, how to calculate. Just I will tell you, because yesterday also you are all asked for the customs duty related these details. So let us understand. So you are all there? Yes, Mr. Srinivaslu, Hari Krishnan. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, I'm there. I was muted, sir.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Srinivaslu, you are also there?
Sir, speaker is automatically muted from your side. That's why I could not able to speak and asking some questions where I have doubts. Past one year I tried to speak.
No. Otherwise, you could have asked me in the question box also, no?
I asked some question box. I requested to unmute.
Okay. Let us make this. Let us now make the duty calculation. How to make? Let us go in ice skate.
And one more issue, sir. One thing. When we are
Yes.
importing the goods from ship,
Yes,
CHA agent, some charges will charge, service
Yes,
charges.
sir.
That
Yes,
he
sir.
is going to charge IGST, not CGST, HGST. If I am importing the goods from China to India, clearance happen in India at Bangalore airport. There, our CHA is charging the IGST instead of CGST, HGST. Then
Okay.
that IGST treated as a under import of goods or as a regular of IGST.
No. You see, let us understand very clearly. The shipping, this CHA you are calling about, he is a service provider. Suppose
Yes.
he is in India, he is in Bangalore, and your office also in Bangalore. Then his
Yes, sir.
service portion only, service charges only. I'm not talking other charges, only the service charges.
Yeah.
What are the service related he has provided and he is charging to you, that he can claim in because it's the intrastate within the state, then he has to claim the CGST and SGST. Okay, because within the state, if it is outside the state, then IGST. Okay, this is the very clear. This is because GST is the internal GST provisions. It's nothing to do about import and all. He is giving certain provision of services to you, and he has to claim the only GST related. The GST is within the state, then it is intrastate. Intrastate means CGST and SGST has to claim. Very
There
clear,
is a
sir.
notification for that, sir. There is a notification for that. They have tried to charge IGST, not CGST, HGST. There is a
IGST.
particular transaction.
No. What is the transaction? Tell me now. I'm talking of the service. If the service is there, no other. Yeah, very clear in the GST law. Very clear in the GST law. If he is giving the services within the state, then CGST and SGST is applicable. But you are talking maybe something else. Then what is that you tell me? Then I can explain to you.
Clearing of the goods at the port. Then
At the port.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, in the airport.
No, okay. Any port it can be, but he is giving you provision of service within the state. Therefore, it is a CGST and SCST only. You can ask him why he is charging the IGST then.
Yes, bro, I couldn't remember. Notification is there in the transportation charges and where we are getting the import of goods. Then there is a transport charges also there. For that, he is charging the IGST and other charges also. He is charging IGST.
No, IGST should not charge. Otherwise, you can bring that invoice and you can send to us. We can study and explain to you. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
So now I'm going to explain you how to calculate the customs duty, because sometime back I explained to you in the customs what are the various types of duties and how to make the assessment. The assessment, as I told you, always the assessment based on the CF value. Assessment will be CIF value converted into Indian currency, and then that is an assessable value. On the assessable value, the required the duties have been calculated. Now I'm going to this portal. This is an ICE gate. This is an ICE gate. Whenever you are open for the ICE gate, they will ask for the code. This is the CAPTCHA, they call it. CAPTCHA I had to mention 54458, for example. Once the CAPTCHA has been submitted, then it asks for the whether import or export, like others like that will ask. Okay. Suppose it's an import we are talking about. So let us go to the import. Just is getting open. Yeah, when it has been opened, then it asks you the classification ITC based on the HSN note, HSN code it is in asking. If you don't know, forget about, you can give the description also. Either of that you can do it. For example, we have taken certain A, based on that let us just try it. Suppose some item fertilizers are there, for example. So this is the code. If you don't know code, the fertilizer you can write as a urea, for example. Urea I can write, for example. Then let us go to the urea like this. then from which country you are talking about. For example, we can make we are importing a lot of items from the Russia also, fertilizers, though today at present we have some problem, but otherwise from Russia we are, or Ukraine also we are importing. So Russia, for example, you are talking about. Okay, then source, because the country wise the duties are varying, so therefore country you have to mention very clearly. Okay, there is some problem, then let us make this urea we can make. Yeah, this urea is come. This is the urea, whether or not aqueous or ammonium nitrate, or ammonium sulfate. These are the fertilizers, all these things. Again, suppose this is the basic customs duty, they mentioned 10%. But we want the detailed calculation, then you click here. You see here you have to go and click, double click. Okay. Then if you double click, that will open and give you complete details of the urea. Just is getting open. You see, this is how the rates are given. The basic customs duty 10%, and this is they introduce AIDC, means Agriculture Infrastructure Development cess. This is a cess, Agriculture Infrastructure Development cess. Okay, this is available 10% on the basic means assessable value. The custom duty is 10%, then customs AIDC is 10%, then the social welfare surcharge 10%, then IGST is 10%. So this is how the duty calculations happen for this. But this is the total duty 32.16%, because the IGST is calculated based on this. You see, the custom duty, basic custom duty on the assessable value, and also this basic customs AIDC, this also on the basic means assessable value. Then social welfare surcharge, this is collected on the basic customs duty, and of course on the customs AIDC also. On both it has been calculated 10%. This one. The IGST is calculated on the aggregate of all these things. Aggregate of all these things. So therefore, the net total of the duty is coming to 32.16%. Okay, but effective duty they mentioned here. This is an effective duty. Always we have to go with effective duty, because through certain notifications they reduce the rate or they exempted the rate. So here these are the notifications through which the basic custom duty is reduced to 7.5%, not 10%. Originally it's 10%, otherwise it is reduced to 7.5% through notification. This yes, cess has been exempted through this notification, so therefore it is not applicable. Others are applicable. Then net payment is comes to 27.735%. Suppose your value is, for example, say this is the value, this assessable value. You see, if your assessable value is 1 lakh, then based on that you have to pay 27,735 as a duty. Clear, sir? So this accessible value you can change here. What are the accessible value you want, you can change here. So accordingly calculation can be done, and you can get the how much the value of the customs duty. Clear? If you of course try only, if you can try yourself, then you can understand. I request you go to the home and try this once. As I told you, ICE gate you open, and from the ICE gate you can go and make the entries. This is the from the fundamental. Again I will show you one more example. I'll show you. Okay, I will close this one and again I will open. As I told you, this is the ICE gate entry. Yeah, this is an ICE gate that site. There you can go and put the URL here. Then that will ask for the entry of the code, CAPTCHA, then 47169, then submit, then go to the import, because import duty we are calculating, import duty. Then you give either the number, means HSN code, or you can give the means the description. For example, the PET flak, the chips, PET chips we are talking about, means polymer polyethylene terephthalate. The means the bottles and other thing were manufactured in the plastic bottle. Based on the raw material is chip. Chip is the raw material. Based on the PET bottles we are talking about, drinking water bottles, for example, those are being manufactured. This is the raw material. So suppose the raw material we want to know, this is the code we will give now. Based on the code, for example, if you know the code, you can give the code. Otherwise, you can go for this. For the PET bottles, for the example, we import from the Hong Kong or the China. Hong Kong is good source. So let us go to the Hong Kong. Hong Kong. Search. This is the comes, because particular code we have mentioned already 8-digit level. So here double click. Just is opening. Yeah, it is opened, and the basic custom duty 7.5%. Then this in agriculture infrastructural development says 7.5%. Then social welfare surcharge 10%. IGST is 18%. But through this notification, this is the notification, the effective duty becomes 7.5%. Means there is no change, same thing there is happened. But this cess is not applicable. Why this notification? The cess is not applicable, so it is 0. So the effective other things, if you take into that, effective rate of the duty is 27.735%. Otherwise, it is 28.399%. That is why the tariff rate and this year rate, effective rate, both are different. Tariff rate means as per the tariff it is been mentioned, but through certain notifications, those are effective dates are either reduced or increased. Certain cases are increased, they reduced, so that effective rate you have to calculate. Always based on the effective rate only, you have to make the payment of the customs duty. So here the assessable value is 1 lakh. Then you have to pay the duty of 27,735. Clear, sir? Any doubt now? How to make the clearance of the customs duty, customs calculations I mentioned here. Clear, sir? Any doubt? Hello?
No, sir.
Any doubts?
No, sir. No, sir.
How to make the customs clearance, customs calculation of the duties, I explained to you. And one more thing, while I'm talking of the GST, I forget to tell you. Let me tell again. Customs means once you are make the import and export, GST registration is a mandatory. Now they made it is a mandatory also for the Aadhaar card linkage. They made mandatory whenever you are making the GST registration. This mandatory provision they made, Aadhaar card linkage. So just for you to make update, I mentioned this is the latest update. Okay. So with this, today's session is closed. And how to make the payment of the customs duty also mentioned here. Through IceGate you can make payment. The steps are mentioned here, step by step, how to make the payment online. Okay. because CH is doing all these things on your behalf, and he can handle these things. So anything you want, otherwise we will close this today's session.
Sir, when I will get PPT, sir?
PPT tomorrow day after. I will make this all these things and I will send to Mr. Gopal. He will forward to you. Okay, likely
Okay,
by
sir.
tomorrow. Likely by tomorrow, I will share these things. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you. So thanks a lot. Today I'm closing this session.